Vinny is a former writer, creative director at DDB and other places. He'll explain where. He now runs his own small agency called Escape Pod. The Escape Pod. And down the street. And he wants to tell you a little bit about his background and a little bit about his philosophy. I think his story about how he came to do the Was Up campaign is very interesting, among other things. And so it'll be about 40 minutes and then question and answers. And that's it for me. So Vinny, thanks for coming.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me, guys. Yeah. So.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry,
One
what?
thing we need to turn some lights off. In light.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay.
There you go. Nice.
Watch
So you guys are all want to be in advertising, really? Right? Really badly, I'm guessing? You have to want it really badly. Otherwise it won't work. Okay, so my story is basically, I'm not from this country originally. I'm originally from a country called Ireland, West Atlantic. And came here in 1990 from, actually came from London. I got into advertising in London. I was working at a TV station selling airtime for British TV, and I hated it, apart from the fact that it was tangentially related to TV, which I was very interested in, watching TV. And so I got into advertising, and one of the things that strikes me now, compared to what situation you're in versus what I was in, is that advertising has changed so much since I started. I sometimes think I picked the worst possible time to get into advertising in a way. People always say, oh, it's the most exciting time to get into advertising right now because of all the change. I'm like, well, that's kind of true, and it kind of isn't true in a way, isn't it? You know what I mean? Potentially, yes, but you never know. When there's a lot of change, who knows? But it has been interesting, and I'm glad it happened because I was getting kind of tired of just doing commercials. So that's been a good thing. So when I came to this country, obviously I didn't have a clue about America, and so not having a clue about, do we have any foreigners here at all? Anybody who's not from here, from the United States? No? Okay. Well, you wouldn't know anything about this thing. But one of the advantages that I had coming to this culture, now our country, my country, your country, was that I looked at things fundamentally differently. So I would notice things that you wouldn't necessarily notice, So I would, certain things struck me as funny that, cheese whiz. First time I saw somebody with cheese whiz, I was like, you kidding me. That's not right. This day I still don't get it. But it gave me a certain kind of an advantage in a way, because I would see things like cheese whiz and go, that's funny. And I would see things like, like Saturday Night Live and go, that's not funny. It still isn't funny. But, so it would, it just gave me a different point of view, basically, which I thought was an advantage. And there came a point when, in my forget my development as a creative person, but at least my assimilation into the culture, where I went, you know what, I got to commit to this. I got to stop being the outsider who's complaining about the tea and the bacon and things like that, and just go for it. And so I decided at a certain point to really commit to the American culture. So that meant, just going with the flow. So I did that, kind of unconsciously and consciously, because there's a lot to like about this country. And so I got my first job in advertising. Took forever to get first job in advertising for this reason. I only wanted to work for one guy, right? Only one. So that took a while till he had a vacancy. And I think that's an important thing to do, because I think that a lot of people get at your level perhaps, or maybe below or whatever, have this notion that they just want to be in advertising, right? Whatever it is, whether it's Young and Rubicon or Crispin Porter or whatever. And I would advise you strongly not to have that notion, and instead to kind of go, well, where do I want to be? And if you think of it like that, it's not Y&R, it's Crispin Porter, kind of. And so I think that's very. Somebody once told me that actually when I was trying to get into advertising, and looking back, and I followed it really rigorously. And looking back on it, it was a good idea, because your first experience is going to be formative. It's going to be the one that you're at your most open right now. So if you go into an agency and the guy doesn't have a clue what he's talking about, which can happen, that'll be, you'll pick up his bad habits. Whereas if you go somewhere great, you'll pick up their good habits, So that was kind of the way I looked at it. And so I did that. And I learned from the guy I wanted to learn from, and it was great from a lot of points of view. But it wasn't great from the point of view of getting a lot of work done, but whatever. It was good teaching. That's the most important thing, I think. And you only get one chance at this. Like 5 years' time, you'll be old now. So, you've got to be conscious of the stage in which you're at. So and you've also got to be conscious of where the industry's going. When I started out in the industry was going nowhere. It was like TV and print, like it had always been, right? Now it's fundamentally different, as you know. And so I did that for a few years, and then I always wanted to work on beer. I always thought that would be a fun thing for me to do, because growing up in Ireland in the 80s, I remember there was some really good English beer campaigns we used to see, and I was thinking they were the funniest ads, and I remember they had the biggest impact on the culture, and I would go, that's what I want to do. I want to be doing stuff that resonates beyond just, well, that was kind of a nice spot, And because that's the thing that this industry affords you, really, is the opportunity. It isn't so much the opportunity to do cool ads as it is the opportunity to influence the culture to some degree. You put a really cool piece of creative out there, and people will be talking about it. What's the most recent example on that?
Dude.
What?
Dude.
Oh, the Dude from Bud Light. Yes, there you go. That's currently the one. And and they have that chance when you do it. Now you can just do a funny Bud Light commercial, or you can do Dude, right? I know there's some question as to the provenance of that idea. Rob Schneider, 1995, etc. But whatever, it's funnier than most ads, isn't it? So that was sort of what that was where I wanted to do. So to do that, I went, well, who does that? Budweiser is the biggest beer in the country, right? Bud Light, Budweiser. So I made it my business to get a job doing that, which was working for Bud Light 12 years ago. And I loved it. It was great. I was happy. And one of the first commercials I did, when you were like in kindergarten probably, it was very successful. And I remember walking into a bar once here in Chicago, and it was Final Four, or no, the March Madness, right? And I'd been working really late, and I went to this bar, and it was packed. It was a sports bar. It was packed, and I was kind of depressed for some reason. Me and my partner were just there, like, ooh. And our commercial, which we just shot, it came on the TV, and everyone, when it was a packed bar, and when the first frame of the commercial came on, everyone in the bar went, boom, boom, boom. This is the funny one. Watch this. This is the funny one, right? And that was the best feeling ever. I wasn't even aware of what it would feel like. But watching people around I thought it was like on a TV show where they were going to go, you thought it was like a commercial. They weren't, but they were, And it was really satisfying. And I remember thinking, well, that's really cool to get that reaction. And it got, awards, and it got talked about in the press. It was. So I was like, well, that's kind of cool. And then I left DDB and I went away to Boston for a while. I worked for another guy in Boston who was a really cool guy, very a big thinker, which was great, another big thinker. And so I worked for him for a while. And then I went back to DDB. I missed the chance to influence the culture. But this time, the difference, what I noticed in my time away from working on beer, and I worked on it for 2 years on Bud Light, and then went away and came back. And what I noticed in the meantime was, like when I was in Boston, I noticed that it was kind of like, I think it was 97. And for some reason, again, looking at the culture a bit differently,